Welcome to Business Budget Model. In this tutorial, we're going to cover the business valuation, which is in the valuation sheet of the model. To access the valuation sheet, we can select it from the navigation page. It's number 11, Valuation Model. Alternatively, we can simply just click on the valuation worksheet down at the bottom, and the following page will appear. As you can see, there's a certain number of brown shaded cells that would need to be updated and completed by yourself. Some of the information is pulled through from the budget model, and then you're going to do some forecasts. The principle here is that we're using a 5-year period to evaluate the valuation of the business and any potential investment that may arise from a transaction that you may be considering. Before we get into the detail of the model, let's just familiarize ourselves with the information that's on the screen. In this first section here, we have some assumptions and some values that have been taken directly off our budget model. Once again, we've tried to keep the color coordination for the years. So for your first year in pale blue, second year pale green, third year in light grey, and then we assumed a light pink and a light teal color for years 4 and 5. As you can see, under the source, we talk about these values coming from your budget, which is from the budget sheet in this model, and then the other two are assumed growth based on assumptions that you're going to enter in terms of growth percentages for profitability and cash flow. At the top, we've got some navigation keys to easily access the different areas of the sheet. On the right-hand side, we have in these columns from column N to column S, we have to input the accounts where the values of these accounts, the amounts of these accounts, are considered to be debt that the company has. Because with all valuations, debt is normally deducted from the valuation model in order to get a true picture of it. And simply from the access to these accounts is a drop-down list where you can select any one of your liability accounts that come up there. And it will bring up the equivalent values as at the close of each of the financial years for the first 3 years. And then you'd assume if there's going to be any growth year on year, what that percentage would be. If those amounts were going to remain static, in other words, those shareholder loans were going to be pretty fixed, you can put in 0 for the first year, the light pink shaded year, which would effectively be year 4, and you can put 0 for year 5 as well. But we've allowed up to 7 different debt accounts that you could possibly enter. Going back to the sheet, have the input section, which are these top 2, and then we have the different methodologies of valuation, and there's some navigation buttons. DCF is discounted cash flow. EBITDA is an acronym for earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization, and the little x implies multiple, and PE is an acronym for price earnings ratio, and your PE multiple. We can go back to the navigation page, and we've got a quick link to assumptions page because we might want to go and change the scenario that we're looking at. Currently what's being displayed here is that we're doing the valuation based on the low road scenario. If we wanted to change it to the medium or high road, or in other terminology, this is scenario 1, and we wanted to use scenario 2 as the valuation basis, or scenario 3, we'd click on assumptions, we'd go and click on the equivalent scenario we want to have a look at, and then we'll go back to the valuation page, and then it will pull up the numbers based on scenario 2 budget that you have. Go to DCF, and we'll go through these at a very high level, the calculations, or to the EBITDA multiple, which is this one here, or the PE multiple, essentially just takes us just to the PE valuations. So going back to the home page, when you're considering investment, you'd obviously enter the type of investment, and that's depending on how you've actually set that up in your setup sheet. Remember, the terminology is something that you can change. What's common in certain countries called subscription of shares, that's when money is paid for shares, but the money is not paid to the actual shareholders. It's paid as an investment into the company to give it working capital. So you subscribe for additional shares, and in that scenario, all existing shareholders dilute proportionally to the amount of equity that is being subscribed for. In this particular example, we're talking about 25% of equity. So what that would mean in a subscription would be that the current shareholders would all dilute by 25% in order to provide the new investor with 25% of the equity. And the money that is being put in as an investment, in this example, we've put $4 million, would give that investor 25%, but that $4 million would go into the bank account of the company. In other words, the shareholders do not take any money from this transaction. They're doing the transaction purely to provide the business with additional working capital for continued operations and growth. Your default currency is however you've set up your particular model. In this case, it's US dollars, but it could be any one of the 10, 11 types that we cater for in the model. Once you've decided what the amount and the equity percentage is going to be, the investment amount and the equity percentage, you can put it in whichever particular year that investment would come. In addition, you decide how that amount is going to be provided. Is it going to be just total $4 million as an equity investment, or is it going to be split between equity and perhaps a shareholder loan? In this example, we've said of the $4 million, the investor will put in $3.5 million as equity, and he will put in $500,000 as a loan. You can then decide what interest rate you'll be paying on that loan, if there's any interest, and over what period would this loan have to be repaid. And then investors always look on a return on equity before taxation. So you'd need to understand what return your investor is going to be looking for in order to put the $4 million into the company for the 25% equity. In terms of multiples, there are two multiples that we use here, the EBITDA multiple and the NPAT multiple, the net profit after tax, which is your PE multiple. In order for you to determine what a reasonable multiple would be, you'd need to do some research on similar companies in similar countries to you, that there may be published information in terms of what kind of multiples they might have derived from transactions. So it's always important to do some market research to really understand the landscape of the investment at that particular point in time. Obviously, an investment done 10 years ago at a certain multiple may have no relevance to the current market and trading conditions. So try and make your examples as the most recent as what you possibly can. Because we've catered for, in terms of the budget, the first 3 years, which we get the actual numbers from the budget, you need to assume a possible growth for year 4 and year 5. And in this example, the assumption has been made that there'll be 10% growth from year 3 to year 4. So it will take year 3's retained earnings for each of these years, and it will increase it by 10%. Similarly, for year 5, it will take years 4's earnings and increase it by 10%. Similarly, for those years, you need to make an assumption of what your cash flow growth might be in those years. For this example, we've just kept the two the same, but it may not necessarily be the same. Your profit might grow, but your cash flow might not, because you might be looking at providing customers with more credit limits that they can trade on. So you may increase your profitability, but because you've increased their credit facilities for those customers, your cash might be less than the actual growth itself. So you make your assumptions for that. And then various calculations are done. I need to stress that all these calculations are based on the standard formulas, and there's lots of information you can obtain on the internet in terms of the different methodologies of valuation, as well as the formula, which you can verify and make sure that you're comfortable with the outcomes of these calculations. In doing the calculations, the first is called a startup, which is essentially the money that's been put into the company. It will then go and calculate what your cash flow would be for the different years. And remember, the first 3 years are taken directly off the budget, and the last 2 are taken based on the increased cash flow growth as you've put in your parameter there. WACC, or the weighted average cost of capital, is then calculated. As we can see here, it's split the investment into debt equity funding and debt funding. From the 4 million, we said 500,000 would be debt, so the balance 3.5 million would be equity. Then calculates the split. It's looking at the return that the investor wants to get on the equity funding. Remember, the investor would probably be getting an interest rate on the shareholder loan. So it's looking at the return there. We've got the interest that we actually have applied over here. And then the formula for weighted average cost is then calculated, and we have a blended cost over there. If we move on to the discounted cash flow calculation, we work with the net present value. And once again, you can see these are standard Excel formulas that have been used, and financial formulas in the model. Calculates the internal rate of return. It then the estimated business valuation is then calculated, and it's based on the WACC, the weighted average cost of capital, of 18.1%. How did it get 18.1%? You'll recall under the weighted average cost of capital calculation here, the spread of your values between equity and debt funding, and there's the blended cost for the $4 million. So it does separate calculations to break it down to the individual levels. And then it says, well, proportional for 25% equity was the assumption you entered further up in the model. And what it's saying is that, well, for 25%, based on that particular valuation of $14.6 million, for 25%, you should be paying $3.6 million. But in fact, you're actually paying $4 million. So it indicates whether you've overpaid or underpaid. A negative value shown in red means that in that particular year, the potential investor is overpaying for his subscription into your business. However, if you go and look at the years going ahead on the forecast, it means he's effectively underpaying quite substantially, and it shows the amounts as well as the percentages of overpayment or underpayment. So although in the first year the investor might be overpaying in the current year, he's certainly going to get a much better return in the future. So this is what the purpose of the calculation is to show. And then we do a net cash flow after debt repayment. Remember, the values that are being entered into as far as debt is concerned need to be serviced by interest. So you're going to be paying back both the debt and the interest in those periods. So it's going to leave you with a net cash flow in those particular years of those amounts. Moving on to the multiples type methodology. Let's start with EBITDA. Earlier on, we entered a multiple of 5 times the multiple of EBITDA to be used. Remember to benchmark this against any similar transactions that may be for your industry in recent times. What it would then do is take your EBITDA value that's generated from your budget for each of those years and multiply it by that multiple of 5 to give you an enterprise value. It then subtracts the debt that you entered to give you an adjusted value. Based on the adjusted value of your EBITDA valuation, it will then calculate the equivalent of 25%, using this example of 25%. And what that basically says is that based on an EBITDA multiple of 5 times, in the first year, the investor should be paying $19.2 million for 25% equity using this example. Yet only $4 million is being paid. So effectively, the investor is underpaying by $15 million, which is almost 20% on EBITDA multiple valuation. So compared to the discounted cash flow valuation, where in the first year the investor is overpaying on the DCF methodology, on the EBITDA multiple he's underpaid. And that's purely because of the different types of valuation models. And it's always good to have a comparison between the 3 scenarios. So for each of the years, it calculates what they should have paid for 25% and the effective underpayment amount and percentage. If we looked at the PE multiples method, here we're taking the net profit after tax for each of the years and we're multiplying it by a factor of 4. Then we, once again, the principle of subtracting the debt gives us an adjusted value, and proportionally for 25%, that's what the cost should be based on PE multiple of 4 after tax, yet the investor is paying $4 million as opposed to $13.6 million, so effectively $9.6 million underpaying, which is 17.7% in the first year. And so, once again, calculated across the years. So this is done on taking the valuation based on each individual year. In other words, the values at the end of that financial year multiplied. The next methodology here is based on retained earnings. In other words, the value that's generated in the first year carried forward to the next year, the value being the net profit after tax, the retained earnings, carried forward year by year. So it's not looking at a year in isolation, it's actually looking at the cumulative effect year after year. So in this instance, your enterprise value is calculated as taking a multiple of 4 on your retained earnings, less your debt gives you actually a negative amount. So the investor is overpaying because it's negative. He's totally overpaying in year 1. But because we're making much better profits in year 2, profits of year 1 are carried into year 2. So in year 2, the picture looks a lot better, where the investor, in fact, is underpaid. And so the trend goes on. Now, once again, I just want to reiterate, the values that are shown in this example are quite simply based on whatever values are in the model. There's no accuracy, and these numbers don't reflect any individual company's budget. It's just based on the information that was provided in order to create some kind of example to do the calculations. So once you've captured your numbers accurately, done your forecast, you'll get a far better understanding of what the valuations are. In conclusion, remember, it is important to do your homework. Have a look at what transactions have been done for similar type businesses in recent times. Discuss with your financiers, your advisors, as to what suitable assumptions would be, because it doesn't matter what you think your business is worth. It's based on what potential buyer sees the value. And of course, buyers always would negotiate harder for a better deal for themselves. But once you've done the numbers on your 3 different scenarios, different assumptions, you will be in a far better position to negotiate more confidently. And remember, if you wanted to print any of these options out, it is quite simple. You know you're on the medium road scenario, you go to print options, you've got business valuation down at the bottom, it tells you what scenario you're looking at. It's as simple as just clicking on that, and the sheets will be printed, properly formatted. So you can play around with different scenarios. You can print your scenarios, have the different printouts, look at the combinations, play around until you find scenarios that you feel comfortable with to take into your negotiation. That wraps up the tutorial on business valuation. Thank you for joining us.